How do you adapt your business, if it is a customer-facing business, as so many are? How do you adapt to hit the right balance between revenue generation and safety on the one hand, and also the understanding the need to do that and to hit the sweet spot as you look at that? What are the changes that are happening now in terms of how businesses interact with customers that are going to be lasting, that are going to be here for beyond the point at which this pandemic passes, whether it is barriers between you and a checkout person or a check-in person at a hotel? What's going to be the lasting adaptations that we're going to have to live with as we move forward? Andrew Zimmern is is a chef, a chief business owner, and the host of MSNBC's What's Eating America. And Quentin Messer is the president and CEO of the New Orleans Business Alliance. And they will be interviewed by my friend Kate Rogers, our CNBC small business correspondent. Kate?
Hi, Tyler. Thanks so much. We're looking forward to getting into this conversation.
What are you hearing as you go around well, you're really not going around the country very much these days, but as you talk to small businesses and medium-sized businesses, what are you hearing is their biggest challenge these days?
So many different challenges, Tyler. This is such a unique time. It's something that so many really haven't dealt with before. But I think I'd say particularly with brick and mortar businesses, restaurants, it's dealing with limited capacity and who they're able to serve, how customers are able to interact with their business. And quite frankly, what we're going to get into in this panel about reimagining this customer experience, because they need to feel safe in order to feel confident enough to come in and patronize your business. So I think that that's something we're hearing from many different businesses on the one front. The other front is funding, taking on additional debt, what the right move is right now. We've extensively covered the Paycheck Protection Program and the loans that were made available to small businesses through the government. And I think they're looking for potentially more aid with a bit more flexibility. So those have been really my two focal areas in just covering this unique time for small business.
What is also interesting, obviously, is to state the obvious, is that small businesses are unique. They are not of a type per se. There are small businesses that are in the service business, customer-facing, nail salons, retail shops, and then B2B businesses. And then there's the differences in the way we are confronting this pandemic that are city by city, state by state, region by region. I think in the New York, New Jersey area, we've been particularly acutely aware, given the reactions of the governors and the county executives in this area, the mayors, of social distancing, of wearing masks, of a shutdown that has kept many businesses still completely shut down. It hasn't been the same experience for some small businesses in other parts of the country, right, Kate?
That's so true. And as you said, it's really been a patchwork of regulation that we're all really watching very closely. You know, there's no national mandate that would potentially make this easier for some small businesses to figure out what's right and what's wrong for their business. And don't forget, in addition to the additional expense of maybe putting in plexiglass or buying masks for everyone, they also have to train their staff on how to interact with customers and guests during this challenging time. Talk to them about maybe having to wear a mask coming into their retail store or at their restaurant. I've talked to one restaurant owner who said, I'll be giving them out to people if they spend enough money at their restaurant, but you need to wear a mask when you come here. So that's an additional kind of challenge and something that I think a lot of people are still figuring out how to get that right, because you want people to feel safe. You also don't want to be too pushy or potentially offend people or make them do something that they don't want to do. But if it's your small business and it's your rules or it's your local or state regulation, you know, there's a line to walk there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kate, we're ready for your panel right now, so I'll let you take it away, and I'll see you in about 15 minutes. Thanks again, Kate Rogers.
Great, Tyler. Thanks so much. And Andrew and Quentin, thank you both so much for joining us today. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Honored to be here.
So we're here to talk about reimagining the customer experience. As I just said to Tyler, this is an unprecedented time. Andrew, I'll start with you. I know you believe in, really making people feel safe to get over that psychological hump with bringing people back, whether it's going to a restaurant to sit outside and enjoy a meal or going to shop in a retail store. Business owners that are watching are trying to figure that out. What would be a good place and some good tips for them to start?
Well, I think safety is job number one. Obviously, we have so much uncertainty in the industry. If you are able to open and you've made the commitment to open, that's a decision that varies from business owner to business owner. But if you're committed, I would suggest that you do a couple of things. Number one, you have to keep your employees safe before your customers. If you can't keep your employees safe in your restaurant kitchen, in your break rooms, when they're out on the floor, eventually that lack of safety will leak out into the dining room. Your consumers will pick up on that, and consumer demand will decrease. Everything right now has to be focused on creating consumer demand for your product. So if you're an entrepreneur in the restaurant space, putting on your own gas mask first is so vital. That communicates a lot to customers when they see you treat your employees the right way, when they see your employees with the right PPE, with the right sort of, signs on the floor, extra plexiglass around work areas for them, that communicates a lot. You can also use nonverbal cues as well. Plastic sleeves on silverware with a sticker that says, "I've been sterilized," is a great way to communicate to people that if you're going to go to that step, then you're going to go to the next step too, and that the experience for the consumer will be a safe one. The customers see that. They see arrows on the floor. They see bowls of masks. They see multiple stations in a restaurant to wash your hands. And that's super important. The other thing that is vital is to get into politics and civics, because my recommendation as an entrepreneur is for other entrepreneurs to squirrel away as much cash as they can and be prepared to pivot. That requires dollars. Dollars have run out at the city and state level, which is why so many people are putting chargebacks onto consumer tabs. And I think that the restaurant community and everyone who loves food needs to get behind the Restaurants Act, which is in front of Congress right now. The Independent Restaurant Coalition is for it, and people should go to saverestaurants.com and email their representatives directly from there and encourage them to support it. We have a third of the of Capitol Hill reps already sponsoring it, but we need more. And I think it's very important that federal aid come from Washington, in particular to support independent restaurants.
Quentin, I'll turn to you now. So Andrew mentioned creating demand, right? And obviously supporting your local businesses that are struggling right now, whether it's a restaurant, retail storefront, online business. I'm curious what you're seeing on the ground in New Orleans, how your local businesses are getting creative to stay afloat and hopefully keep customers coming back to them.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Honored to be here with Andrew and you. So here in New Orleans, we're really seeing our local businesses do three things. One, I think Andrew spoke about it eloquently, really making sure that their employees are safe, because it's so important. That psychological safety of employees does indeed translate to the buying public. The second thing, we're seeing a lot of restaurateurs say, hey, look, is there a way I can create a product that I could sell on store shelves? Is there a way that I can move from maybe exclusively dine-in to takeout? Is there a way, the city of New Orleans just recently, today in fact, announced an outdoor dining program. How can I adjust to the capacity limit? And I think that the last thing you're seeing people do is really leverage social media to really try to drive demand and really personalize the shopping experience. Fortunately, in New Orleans, we've always been a city in which people like to buy local. They like the unique products and services of our small businesses here.
Certainly, and a lot of businesses, no matter where they are across the country, are thinking about new ways to bring in revenue, right? Alternative revenue streams. Andrew, I know we've seen a lot of it in the restaurant industry, local restaurants kind of turning to something like a grocery delivery or takeout that they didn't do before. Any tips for small business owners in the restaurant world or beyond to think about how they can potentially make up for lost revenues during these challenging times?
Creativity, and it's why any hiring, as people are scaling up, needs to be directed towards hiring people with a 2022, 2023 mindset, people who are solutions oriented, not problem oriented. Alternative revenue streams in the food space, have looked like everything from delivery, takeout, restructuring of menu pricing, perishable food sales that you mentioned, home meal kits to recreate the restaurant experience that they're used to having in the place where seats are limited now, and doing that at home. But what's really key is no matter what you're doing in that regard, you have to educate and communicate about why that is different to do it in your space. Competition is, despite so many places going out of business, which is very sad, competition for that low consumer demand threshold we're at now makes education and communication about why you're doing those things so valuable. So when Dan Barber at his restaurant, Blue Hill at Stone Barns, started putting together meal kits, he very intentionally communicated that these were all the purveyors that supply his restaurant. And that piece of information made consumers feel like they were taking a piece of Blue Hill at Stone Barns home with them. Spoon and Stable and Grand Cafe are doing it here in Minneapolis. It's really, really smart. You cannot over communicate to your guests at this point in August of 2021. You just can't. August 2020.
And Quentin, we talked yesterday, you and I, about changing Main Street, right? And what businesses will survive and what may change, because everyone is now working from home. The needs for different products and services have shifted. What do you think Main Street looks like next summer? And what can we do to keep those businesses that are like your local dry cleaner or your local coffee shop that used to be mainstays that people stopped at every day or needed every week? We will need them again in the future. How can we keep them afloat?
That is the question of the hour. I think there are three things that we can do to keep those businesses afloat. First of all, we really need to get the general public, Andrew talked about it. There are four things that we know we need to do in order to get and break the back of COVID-19. Wear a mask, social distance, check symptoms, and if we do those things, we know we can break the back of COVID-19. So we have to solve the public health issue first. The second thing we have to do is we also have to pivot. I think that there are, Andrew talked about it, there are a lot of cafes and businesses that rely on office traffic. Office space traffic may not come back next year, but what they can do is maybe begin to think about pivoting, as Andrew mentioned, to maybe meal plans, stay at home. I think a lot of people are getting tired of cooking the same thing. So figure out, get to know your customer. If there's a large company like a law firm or a bank or something, and you usually have a disproportionate amount of business, maybe figure out a way to try to deliver some of those favorite things, smaller menu, obviously, to some people at home, because people want to find a bit of normalcy, a bit of that life that they had prior to COVID-19. And the last thing, you talked about dry cleaners. As a lot of people are in sweatpant land, but eventually they will have to come back. So I think maybe some of those dry cleaners could think about maybe looking at becoming industrial sterilization. There is going to be a need for office spaces, restaurants, entertainment venues, and other things for serious sterilization. Maybe that's something, if you're a dry cleaner or been in a cleaning business, you can move to an adjacent vertical to take advantage of those opportunities.
Great. And I want to just remind our audience quickly that you can submit questions to us if you want us to ask either of our experts on this panel about reimagining the customer experience. Andrew, I'll turn back to you. You talked about hiring with this 2021, 22 and beyond mentality. You know, you need to make sure your employees feel safe and your guests feel safe. Hiring and training right now is going to become so important, and you're going to need your staff and the people who come and patronize your business to feel that they can trust you. Where should you start when you're looking to bring on new talent and also getting them in the right mindset to operate in this new and challenging environment?
Well, it's one of those sad news for many, good news for others, is that there are a lot of people who are super smart, super talented, who are unemployed. So for someone who is scaling up, there are a lot of people to choose from. I think hiring is often something that people don't invest enough time and energy into, and it's not just about checking out someone's resume to see if they get a good reference or a bad reference, but really spend some time with those people, see what their problem-solving issues are like, take your 3 biggest problems from your business over the last 30, 60 days and put those as gameplay scenarios in front of those employees. I think creativity and navigating uncertainty, having that explorer's mindset, is something that is going to be more highly prized as the years go on. Life is ambiguous and uncertain. It's fired at point blank range. Everything can change in an instant in a business, and we've seen it so many times over the last couple of years. And of course, most tragically, with the twin pandemics of the C-19 virus and this cultural pandemic that's ripping this country apart. And I think business owners need to stock their bench with employees that are not afraid, who navigate fearlessly, and who are willing to take risks and mistakes that are creative, because you're going to get a chance to make those up. If someone is stuck in one way of problem solving, I think that's an issue for anyone who's job seeking these days.
And Quentin, I'll ask you, in terms of pivoting your business, right, taking some of what you've done in the past and turning it into something new that is maybe more timely, something that's more relevant for right now, what do you think sticks with businesses as they pivot in this pandemic to operate? And what do you think that looks like for future operations? How will consumer preferences change, and how will business owners continue to adapt?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think one thing, really intimate knowledge of your customer. I think that's the first thing, knowing who your customers are. And I also think it means segmenting your customers, knowing who are your most profitable customers, because those are the ones that will be able to shift and adjust, and you want to shift and adjust with their preferences as well. I think the second thing, you want to diversify your revenue source. You want to have multiple sources. So if you're a restaurant and people go gaga over one of your sauces, maybe think about bottling that and marketing that on the side as well. I also think that people now, with a world without boundaries and barriers because of the internet, I think people should begin to think about and get outside of the box thinking with regard to geography and really introducing the world to there are great restaurants and great traditions here in New Orleans, and I think a lot of very successful businesses are saying, hey, look, we can't wait for the world to come back to New Orleans. We're going to take the best of New Orleans to the world. So I think that's something that's applicable not only for New Orleans businesses, but businesses across this nation.
Wonderful. Well, Quentin Messer and Andrew Zimmern, thank you both so much for sharing your time and your expertise with our small business viewers today. We know your advice was helpful to them, and hopefully they'll be able to continue to navigate this challenging time.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, thanks for having me.